So we left off with Janeway in the clutches of the Borg hive, while Voyager was in the clutches of a Borg cube. Well, that's an all-around bad situation, and as far as Chakotay is concerned, the result of a bad decision. His first order of business is to try to get Janeway back, but Torres can't seem to beam her back. I'd suggest using a skeletal lock, but I'm not sure that Harry's tears aren't at least partially because his rib cage got sent to engineering by mistake. Janeway finally calls up to say not to bother. The Borg have agreed to escort them across their space if they agree to work together on developing a weapon along the way. You know, I'm not exactly comfortable with this arrangement.
Don't worry, I've got the situation well in hand. These Borg are... For the last time, stop trying to put an implant in my spine.
Captain, do you think they could turn off their tractor?
That's it, 3PO. I'm shoving that implant so far up your...
You know, I think we'll just leave you to sort this out yourself, Captain. To cap his day, the Doctor shows Chakotay how the nanoprobe weapons work. Latch onto a cell, assimilate it, and then the probe and cell quickly break down, meaning that the aliens get briefly assimilated and then melted alive. And you're worried this weapon is immoral. What a wimp. Well, there's only one thing left to do now, what we do with all our weapons once we finish them. Let's go test it out on Harry. Fortunately for Harry, it turns out he's one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world, so the cure starts working rather than letting him die like what was supposed to happen. It still would have been a better death than Tasha Yar's, though. I think we can agree on that. Over on the cube, Janeway's made clear that she and Tuvok aren't getting that implant installed, so the Borg need to choose a representative. Thus they choose the new character, 7 of 9, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01, but you can call her fan service. So the matter at hand is how exactly we're going to use these as a weapon. Both sides come up with the idea of putting it inside an explosive, because if you have tiny delicate things, the best thing to do is to strap them to a bomb, right? But the only real disagreement on these two is the sheer scale of what the boom boom should be, and the problem of having enough of them for whatever weapon they devise. Little progress is made because Species A472 goes into Kess's head and discovers what the plan is, getting help from the Federation, the very species that the Borg tried to assimilate once, using only one ship and failing. Then they tried to assimilate them again, using only one ship, and failing. But Species 8472 cannot allow these two to work together, and so it responds with only one ship, and failing. You know, these two enemies really are made for each other. What happens is that 8472 is specifically targeting Voyager, and it's obvious why. The Borg can defeat Voyager, 8472 can defeat the Borg, and Voyager can defeat 8472. Meaning this is, when you boil it all down, one enormous game of rock, paper, scissors. It's just that paper is trying to form an alliance with scissors to kill rock, so rock is trying to sucker punch paper before it gets the chance to do that. And of course, before things are further complicated by the arrival of Lizard and Spock. The Borg cube must be sacrificed to save Voyager, but Janeway gets her brain zapped by enemy weapon splashes. We should probably treat her right away before she does something crazy, like form an alliance with their worst enemy, or try to get tactical advice from a painter. With her in a coma, Chakotay is in charge now, and the only thing he hates more than a cargo bay full of Borg drones is this plan. At Voyager's maximum speed, the war is going to be over by the time they cross Borg space, creating an impasse. The Borg will lose without the weapon to win right now, and Voyager won't give up the nanoprobes because there's no guarantee that they won't get assimilated afterwards. The Alliance is held together by only the flimsiest bits. If only they had some common ground here, like boobs. Clearly that's something that Chakotay can put his trust in. The Borg want Chakotay to head back into Borg space to rendezvous with one of their ships, but it's a 5-day journey in the wrong direction. And besides, aren't their cubes supposed to be super fast? Why don't they just head towards Voyager? Actually, why aren't they using their tech to haul them through their space? I mean, if they can drag the Hansons across the galaxy by accident, they ought to be able to get Voyager 1,000 light years or so on purpose, right? Chakotay decides that this is all too dangerous, so he's prepared to end the alliance and tells everyone else at a staff meeting. A meeting which includes Neelix, whose contribution to the discussion consists pretty much just of body odor. Chakotay's plan is to leave the Borg on an uninhabited planet with supplies and the nanoprobes. Seven does not like this plan, though. So the collective decides it has no choice but to seize control of Voyager and send it into the realm of Species 8472. Of course, this can be done with the deflector, because the deflector can do anything. Before there was 7 of 9, there was the deflector. Speaking of which, she hides in the Jeffries tube in order to do the fiddling that needs to be done, so that when Chakotay opens the doors to flush out all the drones into space, she's spared. And it doesn't solve anything anyway, because they get pulled into the dimension full of goo, and what's even better, there's only 3 hours before Species 8472 shows up to investigate. And 7 will not send them back because, in an ironic twist, it's her only leverage against Voyager. Now that he's fractured the Alliance and gotten them stranded in another universe that's filled entirely with mucus, that, of course, is when Janeway wakes up and calls Chakotay up to sickbay so she has a chance to read him the riot act. She doesn't want to hear his excuses. She knows that he wanted to end this and was just looking for an excuse. Which is really sad. Janeway seems to trust the Borg more than her own first officer. That leaves Chakotay with only one card left to play, drawing on continuity to trump her I'm in charge card with the I know what it's like to be a drone card. So the plan is this. They will help the Borg like they planned to originally, but they're going to be ready to screw the Borg over once this is all finished because they know that the Borg are just itching to screw over Voyager, so let's be ready to catch them when the moment arrives. So 8472 shows up, a fight breaks out, and 4 of their ships get destroyed by these fancy new nanoprobe weapons. So 7 allows them to return to our universe, saving time for one last uber torpedo to take out the last assault of 13 bioships, ending this battle, and by extension, the entire war. That's all it took. Pity 8472 didn't try going into Afghanistan. This invasion would have been over in 10 minutes if that's all the nosebleed they need to run off. Well, predictably, the Borg terminate the Alliance and prepare to assimilate Voyager, but this is where Chakotay's plan, Operation Common Sense, comes into play. Be ready to disable 7 of 9 if it comes down to it. So he distracts her by using the neural link that the Borg were trying to put into Janeway and Tuvok, while Torres then disables her tech, until it finally overloads 7 and she collapses on the floor. And of course, per the rules of war, everyone begins drawing dicks on her face. Scorpion Part 2 gives us a chance to see things from the Borg point of view this time. Scorpion Part 1 described the Borg as close to pure evil, but evil implies an intent towards malevolence. The Borg do what they do because no matter what you protest, they honestly believe that what they're doing is for your own good. Janeway's proposal about the weapon was essentially small-scale shock and awe, to swiftly eradicate a few bioships to make the others flee. But the Borg Collective finds that impractical and dubious. They want to create a massive weapon, even if there will be collateral damage, but not because they want collateral damage. I mean, there's no logic to collateral damage after all. However, they don't believe that the destruction of just a few could possibly end this conflict. Species 8472 has sufficient numbers and technology to win, even if some of them are lost. What does it matter if 100 fall to secure victory? Because that's how the Borg see it after all. A large-scale problem requires a large-scale cure. Comprehending the weight of the individual is focusing in completely the wrong direction as far as the Borg are concerned. Individuals are nothing to them. The Borg don't care about individuals any more than you care about the ants on the sidewalk. No reason for interest unless they do something that draws your attention. That's what makes this such a pain for the Borg to deal with. They're forced to handle individuals. But individuals are distracted and unpredictable. Janeway kept going on about Seven's biological background when it had nothing to do with the job at hand. Focus! We're trying to win a war here! When they finally get her to shut up and do her job, the ship is destroyed. She says that the Borg can come on over to her ship. And suddenly, when she arrives, her crew comes in pointing weapons at all of the Borg after they just sacrificed their ship and tens of thousands of drones to save their lives. You're welcome. I'm not saying the Borg are the good guys in this situation. since you can't trust them an inch after all. I'm just pointing out that to them, all of this stuff, everything, is perfectly reasonable. And in their minds, assimilation is bringing order to a dysfunctional chaos. When Janeway's about to be put into a coma and she tells Chakotay to try to preserve the Alliance, she's really asking him to pull off the impossible. She takes issue with him not preserving the Alliance, but had threatened to cancel it herself when it came to having an implant inserted temporarily. So she is willing to break the Alliance if a certain line is drawn, but Chakotay has no idea what that line is. For him, it's different than her. But she sees that as a betrayal, because she knew that he didn't support her plan. He, on the other hand, saw it as a step too far. It seemed like a bad idea in the first place, and every single thing was showing how it was getting worse and worse until he was afraid they were going to be trapped and helpless. So neither one was in a position of seeing things from the other one's point of view, and so neither one trusted the other. That's not a criticism of it. It shows exactly what the show had promised. Conflict between two different crews. What makes this one of Voyager's stronger outings is that it falls back on its premise. Two leaders forced to work together to get through a hostile situation when they can't even agree on how that should be done. Time for the awards. I'm told I pronounced this wrong, so I'm going to make up for it by presenting you the award once again for Harry, Thai Chicken. Ooze is Good Food Award for an entire universe made of some kind of organic soup. Voyager's going to have to find a car wash now. Third up, Hijack, for another example of someone being able to take over the ship. And finally, LoJack, for giving it right back to the Borg by taking over one of their drones. In my next one, Spock gets into a serious argument with a rock.